Now, this right here is a picture of me when I was your age. Okay? I was 21 years old, and that's probably about like most of you. I was 21 years old. That picture was taken in a place called Lac Ninh, Vietnam. A very, very bad neighborhood.
You haven't been in Clifton.
What's that?
You haven't been in Clifton.
It's triple canopy jungle, very mountainous, heavily forested. There are lots of bad guys with rifles and stuff, okay? And I was a new sailor. I was a new lieutenant. And I arrived there, and I hadn't been there hardly any time at all. And they came and said, okay, Lieutenant, this is your platoon. Okay, you're now in charge of these guys. And we're going to put you on these choppers, and we're going to take you out, and drop you off on this map right here. And then you guys are going to go out, and you're going to conduct ambushes and aerial patrols for a while. And eventually we'll come out, and we'll pick you back up, pull you back here. And I went, actually, see, in my training, they never actually taught us how to do ambushes. We had never got around to teaching us how to do ambushes. And I'll never forget the guy went, well, son, use your imagination. And so they flew us out. And you can always tell when it's a bad neighborhood, because when it's a bad neighborhood, they don't actually land the helicopter. They just kind of hover a little bit. You have to jump out. That's a real tip off. So there we were, with all these bad guys all around us. And so we wandered around for a while, doing ambushes and stuff. And it soon became very clear that if we continued operating this way, we were not going to have a very long lifespan. Okay? And so I called a meeting. Let's call everybody together. And I said, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but it looks to me like we keep doing this, we're all going to get greased real quick. Okay? And they all went, yeah, kind of way it looks to us too. So I said, what are we going to do? So we talked, and somebody came up with the observation that some units could walk through an area and nobody ever touched them. They were like golden. They'd go through and nobody would touch it. And then there were other units, 10 minutes later, would walk down the same place, okay, and they'd get creamed. And we were going, why does it happen to some groups and not others? What's going on? And we came to the conclusion, right there, wrongly, that it had a lot to do with a cruel calculus that was being conducted. Because there were people out there watching you all the time. And they were trying to figure out, if they killed you, is there a possibility that you might kill them? See, and they were watching you. And we decided that if you looked like you knew what you were doing, if you looked like you were really tough, bad guys, okay, they look at you and they go, if I take them on, well, there's a real chance they'll get me. I ain't gonna let them go on by. But then the next group came along, and they're dragging their rifle behind them, and now they get creamed, okay? And so we sat down and tried to figure out how could we look like we knew what we were doing. And so we figured the way you wear your uniform, the way you carry your weapons, the way that you're spaced, your flank security, your point men, you would operate in such a way that whether you knew what you were doing or not, you looked like you knew what you were doing, okay? And that seemed to work pretty well for us. And we found out an interesting thing. After you pretend long enough that you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. It becomes second nature to you. You just start doing what you should be doing, okay? You learn how to be good, okay? So we did that for a while. One day, Sergeant Chestnut came up to me and he said, Lieutenant Levy, I've been talking with the guys, and they said, I have to come here and talk with you, because we've been watching what you're doing, and we've been paying attention to what you was going to say. And we think, the guys all think, that if anybody can get us out here alive, it's you. Okay, so I've been authorized by the house to come up here and tell you that whatever you want to do, we're going to do it. Okay? You got our vote, man. We're going to do it. Okay? And I said, thank you, sir, that's nice. Thank you. Because just so you understand, just so you understand, the last lieutenant, we shot him. Well, thank you for sharing that. He even told me how they did it. He even told me how they did it. Okay? Because they wanted to live. They wanted to survive. We did okay. We survived. Had a couple guys wounded that they killed. We did okay. And then they came along and attempted to take over a company. So I became a 21-year-old company commander. And a new guy came in, and he took over my platoon. And he didn't believe in the touchy-feely stuff like we all get together and talk about things, solve problems together, communicate back and forth. Where the lieutenant listens to what the men say, pays attention to what their feelings are, what their perceptions are, tries to learn the things that they've learned, tries to understand what they've picked up in a way of knowing how to stay alive and survive in that environment and all that. He didn't believe in any of that stuff. He had his way of operating. And 30 days later, they were all dead. 30 days later, they were all dead. And for the first time in my life, little things that you heard people say like, leadership makes a difference. Those are just big words. And all of a sudden, they weren't just words. All of a sudden, it was like truth. It was like burned into your brain. Leadership makes a difference. And what an incredible insight to have when you're 21 years old. And when you learn it in an environment like that, it stays with you for the rest of your life. Okay? So, something you might want to keep with you, and something that you might want to remember, is that it's not only all about people, but leadership makes a difference. You say, well, this is how you put together a plan. These are the 5 essential elements of a plan. And this is the sequence of those 5 essential elements. Now let's break down each one of those essential elements into its subcomponents. And they teach you that. And then they can test you on that. And they say, what are the 5 essential elements of a plan? They want to see the list. And then they ask you, what are the subcomponents under planning? And you give the list. It's easy to teach, and it's easy to test. Doing an ambush, it's tough to test. There's all these variables, there's all these different things. What does the trail look like? Is it a V trail? Is it a trail that's straight? Is it a trail that's curving? Is it curving toward you? Is it curving away from you? All these different things all have impacts on the decision-making process. Very difficult to teach and test that easily. Okay? And so the Army teaches stuff easy to teach and test, and so do organizations, bureaucratic organizations. Okay? And what's worse about this is that places like universities will say to you, if you learn how to do these things, you'll be successful. You will be successful if you're a good manager and you learn how to plan and organize and coordinate, direct and train. If you learn, what the 5 essential elements of the plan are, and then you learn each one of the subcomponents under each one of those essential elements, well, then you're going to be a successful manager, and you will be a success. And there's only one thing wrong with that, which is it's a lie. It won't make you a success. What that will do, that's an essential, minimum, mandatory requirement. Unless you can master those things, you don't even get to play on the team. Okay? This gets you onto the team. That's all it does. It's essential. It's essential that you know this stuff. It's essential that you're good at it. And it's essential that you can accomplish these things. But all it does is get you on the team. And those things you learn in school. Leadership. Leadership is completely different animal. Leadership, again, 5 essential elements. If you are a leader, you must have a vision. Not a committee that you set up that will come and give you a vision. Not a group of people, not a checklist format that allows you to send pieces of paper around and get people's ideas about it and then tabulate them and find out, well, most people voted for this vision. No, you're the leader. You are responsible for the vision. You can talk to people, you can get their ideas, you can get their input, you can get their assistance, you can get their help. But you are the leader, and you are essential for putting the vision together and having the vision. And that's the first necessary step to becoming a leader. And the second thing is you've got the courage to stand up in front of a whole bunch of people who probably won't want to hear what you have to say, and you're going to tell them what that vision is. Especially the days right after the airplane hit. We would meet every morning at 8 o'clock, and every afternoon at 6 o'clock. And all my key leaders would come in. And people were very, very shook up. Now, it was really interesting for me because it didn't bother me, because I'd already been there. I'd already walked through the valley of the shadow of death. I'd already been to Vietnam. I'd already seen all my friends disappear. You know? And so to me this was just revisiting a place that I knew very well. But for people who just the day before just been sitting at a desk typing on their computer, okay, they had no expectation that something like this might enter their lives and that they would experience this kind of tragedy. And they were really shook up. And you'd say to them, okay, listen, I know you're upset. I know you're sad. Okay? But you are a leader. You are the leaders of this organization. And you represent this organization. And you represent the Pentagon of the people out there in the community. And you represent the United States of America and the world. Okay, so if you're upset and you want to cry, okay, you come into this conference room that we've set up as our headquarters for this project, for this effort. You come into this room and you close the door, and here with your friends and your co-workers who are your very closest friends in the entire world now, okay, and you can cry, and you can pour your heart out to them, and you can say all the things that you want to say, and you can express just how badly you feel. But you listen to me. When you open that door and walk out, you represent all of us. You represent all of us. And everybody that's out there, every carpenter, every guy mixing cement, every guy slapping paint on the wall, every person that's hammering nails, everyone who's working electrical cables, everyone who's pulling telecommunications, every one of those people out there know that you're a leader, and they look to you for the signs and the signals of who and what they are supposed to be. And you will not let us down. You will not let us down. You will stand tall. You will stand straight. You will be a leader. You will get people to do the things that they don't want to do. The really nasty, rotten stuff that we're going to have to do in the future. You're going to work with them. You're going to make it happen. And you're going to be a leader because you represent all of us. And that's what you got to do. And that's what you want to be. You know, who knows what that picture is? Somebody know what that picture is? Does anybody know what that? Who's the guy standing in that picture? It's Eisenhower, that's right. Who's he talking to? Which airborne? 101st, that's correct. 101st, screaming Eagles. Okay, 101st Airborne. He's talking to a bunch of guys. They're going to parachute in to France the next day. And Eisenhower knows that he's talking to dead men. Okay? Eisenhower knows. And so when Eisenhower got through talking to these guys, it's recounted that he left them and walked over to his staff car and he sat in the back seat and he cried. And he cried because he was sending those men to their death. Okay? And so I ask you, so do those people see him crying and they thought, oh, what a wimp. Jeez, what a jerk. I hate that guy. I want to work with him. You know? Is that what they thought? Don't they think? I don't think so. I think what they thought, what they realized was that he loved them. He loved them. Okay? And that's why he was crying. But what a powerful message to send to those people at a time like that. You know, it's interesting, at one point, Alexander the Great, his army, actually 2 times, one time in particular, his army rebelled. They mutinied, and they would not follow his leadership anymore. They demanded him take it back to Greece. And Alexander the Great asked for all of his leaders in his army to come into his tent. And basically, his whole army came around the next day. It was a showdown time. Okay? And all these people came crowding around the tent. And Alexander the Great walked up, stood up, and got ready to talk. And as he got ready to talk, everybody's hand went to the hilt of their sword. Because the army was divided. Some were willing to follow him, most were not. And hanging in the balance was the future of his army and probably his life. And Alexander the Great started to speak. And he began with the words, I love you. I love you. And then he took them through all the battles they've been through. And he would say, remember this scar? You know when I got this scar? I got this scar because I was leading you over the walls of such and such city. And I wouldn't ask you to scale that wall instead of me. I didn't hang back. I wasn't in the rear watching you do it. I was there with you. I was there with you at the time that you did it. Yeah. And I fought right along beside you. I was in the front. Okay? Because I love you. You know, guys, guys don't like to talk like that. Guys don't like to talk about all the personal stuff and all that, okay? But you know what? That's what it's all about. It's all about working with people that you just love, that you respect, that you enjoy working with, people that mean something to you, people that you're willing to sacrifice for. That's what leadership's all about. So if you want to be really good, if you want to be a leader, you better figure out how you reach down into your heart and display something. And you learn that in life. So to be really, really good, you have to be both. You have to be a manager, get you on the field, get you to play, but then you have to be a leader. If you want to be great, the organization will be great, the company will only be great if you are a leader as well as a manager of the pyramid. And it's interesting, as you probably know, the pharaohs in ancient Egypt were considered a living god who came to earth. They had total power of life and death over everyone in the kingdom. The king had only the time to say, you're dead, and you were dead. Okay? He was the living sun god, total, absolute power. But by the time Shepsakov came along, he was going to build the 4th pyramid. In today's vernacular, the people came to Shepsakov and said, Shep, baby, we ain't building no more pyramids. Got that? Okay, Ixnay on New York Day, remember that? We have had it with building pyramids. Now, we know you're the living son of God. We understand, okay? And we know you have absolute power over everyone and everything. And we understand that you don't want to snap your fingers, you're all going to be killed. But we're not building any more pyramids. And the fourth dynasty in Egypt was the last time pyramids were ever built, all the way through. Some people say there's 33, some say there's 34 dynasties, depending on how you count. But there was never another pyramid. The lesson here is that even with absolute power, total power, it's really, really hard to get people to do things they just don't want to do. Which brings us to the way that we treat each other in design and construction, okay? Which is we write a whole bunch of contracts that are filled with things like damages, deductions, assessments, liquidated damages. You know, they are all negative things. They're all penalties. They're all bad things that happen to you, okay? Most of the contracts, most of the relationships that you'll enter into contractually in the world, at least in traditional ways of doing design and construction, most of those contracts are filled with a whole bunch of stuff about how you're going to beat each other up and make each other miserable when you fail. The assumption being you're going to fail, okay? And that's the presumption that is frequently found in the design and construction world. So, we ask the question here after 3,000 years, what if we decide to learn to plan for success? You know, would our contracts look the same way if instead of planning for failure, we decided to plan for success? You know, for example, you know, I've gone all around the country and talked to so many people. It's so interesting when I talk to people that are involved in writing contracts, entering into contractual relationships, both on the user side as well as the provider side. No, so I go to say a city, and I talk to people who work there, and I say, well, tell me what happens. What do you do if you have a design and construction contract and it fails? And they almost glow when they tell you about it. They know exactly what to do. And they get really, well, okay, so we take this form, and we fill this form out, and it explains what the problem is, and everything, and we put this one on top of this file, and then we send that to the legal department. And the legal department does their review, and then they put another form on top of that, and they sign it, and it gives us the authority to exercise the damages, okay? And so then, when we get that back, then we can exercise the damages, you know, and then we start getting ready to go to court and fight, you know? And they know exactly what to do. They're almost gleeful as they describe it, you know? And you go, okay, so answer me another question. What happens if you get a design and construction contract, and it's a wonderful contract? It's the best contract you've ever had. It not only meets all your requirements, it does better than what you asked. It's better than what you asked for. It's a wonderful contract. It's just fantastic. Everything is great. What do you do? And they were also kind of befuddled. And they'd go like, well, the most frequent answer I got was, well, we pay them, I guess. Okay? That's how excited they were about success. Okay? We pay them, I guess. Okay? Common sense will tell you, if you really want to succeed, if you really want to be successful, you would give a little bit more thought to success than you pay them, I guess. Okay? You might write the contracts slightly differently. You might enter into relationships that were a bit different if you were really trying to achieve success. You have requirements definition, you have planning, you have design, operations, and support. Those are the functions that occur within the organization. Okay? And everyone fit into one of those groups. You were a requirements guy, or a planning guy, or a design guy, or whatever. Okay? That's it. And the way the organization functions or operates along those functions. So you have people who work in requirements definition, and they get requirements definition. And when they got through doing requirements, then they would throw it over the transom, and it would land on the desk of somebody in planning who would never seen it before because those two groups didn't talk to each other. They were different organizations. And so then the planning people would do their thing. So when I came into the program, I said, why is it taking us 8 years to build a project? Why is it taking 8 years? I said, requirements determination. Why do you think it's taking us 8 years to build a project? And they would look at me like I was an idiot. And I would say, well, you know, requirements. There are 123 steps in doing the requirements determination process. You know, it just takes some time to do 123 steps to get all these things done that have to be done to do a proper job of requirements determination. And I would say, well, could we possibly like cut it down to 122 steps and take 2 weeks off? No. There's 123 steps there. Then I would go to the planning guys and say, well, okay, well, what's your story? Well, there are 72 steps in planning. You know, everybody had this elaborate, time-consuming, all-engrossing process that they went through to accomplish the functions that they did. And they never talked to each other. Each one of them was operating completely independently. And there are people who are sitting in this audience right now, and I see you, and you're going, yeah, right, yeah, it's, you know. So, and it went on through design and operations and support. So, you know, completely different worlds. So we changed. Oh, I remember one day we had a meeting, and we were doing our first projects down in the basement. And, you know, and it was just going terrible. It was just going terrible. This was all the stuff that I inherited, you know. And I finally looked at the brown room and I said, wait a second, who is responsible for the basement? Which I thought was a pretty straightforward question. Who's responsible for the basement project? And suddenly everyone became very interested in their shoes. They didn't have their shoes, you know. I said, no. Who is responsible for the basement project? No one is responsible for the basement project. There were people who saw themselves responsible for the requirements definition for the basement project. And there were those who saw themselves as responsible for planning, and some others saw themselves as responsible for design, but no one saw themselves as responsible for the basement project. So I turned and said, you are now responsible for the basement project, and all these people are now working for you, okay? So why don't you come by and see me tomorrow? I'd like to talk to you about what we're going to do in the basement project. So we ended up restructuring ourselves completely, and we put ourselves in a matrix organization. And what that means simply is we now had 2 sets of leaders in the organization. We had project people across the top. So we had project 1, project 2, project 3, and because I'm not very good at math, then we started working on project 1. Now, see, you guys are engineers, you would have said project 4, and that would have been very smart. But, so let's take project 3 here, and let's take this person right here. This is a design person. This is an architect, okay? And they work in project 3. Now, the project manager, what we call an integrated product team, this project manager has requirements definition people working for them, and planning working for them, and design working for them, etc. Okay? But this particular person that we're going to talk about in project 3 is a design person. Now, this person every day shows up and is part of this team and supports project 3. At the same time, this person is also part of a functional team that looks at design as an issue that all of our projects must deal with. So to say it in another way, this person up here, the integrated project team leader for project 3, is responsible for cost, schedule, and performance. Cost, schedule, and performance. This person here, the design leader, okay, functional design leader, is responsible for process and policy. That design leader is responsible for making sure that they're looking at the way that the design is being done across all the projects to make sure that we are doing it essentially the same way, that we have the same process, that we have a standardized way of doing business, that everyone is communicating across it, that we are, this is key, each one of these functional leaders is responsible for finding the biggest problem that is causing the most difficulty in their area. So in this case, the design functional leader would pull together all these design people, so project 1, project 2, project 3, and project 4. About every week or two, all together, they would have a meeting. They said, what's the problems that we've got? What's the biggest design problem that we've got? And they would identify the biggest design problem that was impacting our program in the most negative way. And then they would take that problem out, and they would shoot that problem in the head. They would kill that problem. They would figure out a solution to that problem, and they would solve it, and they would implement it across all the projects. And you know what the difference between being a really crappy program and being a world-class program is? It comes down to about eliminating the 5 biggest problems you got. If you eliminate 5 big, monstrous, really crummy problems that are eating your lunch, magically, your program gets transformed. And you know what? After you take the biggest problem you have in design, and you solve it, and you shoot it in the head, then you find the second biggest problem you have in design. And you solve that, and you shoot that one in the head. And then you get the third biggest problem you have. And it doesn't take long before you have a program that's working really, really, really well. Now, the person, this design person, their boss is this person. Okay? They're responsible for cost, schedule, and performance. Okay? This over here, this function, is their support. So let's say this person has a really big problem, they don't know how to solve it, or it's an issue that's come up, and they don't have enough people, and there's just one person there, or 2 people that might be in that team working design, and they need some support. They go back over here to the functional area chief and say, we need some help. And that functional area chief goes to all the other projects and says, okay, I can pull somebody for project 4, I can give you them for a week. I can pull somebody for project 1, I can give them to you for 2 weeks. Okay, so now you have 4 people working that problem. Okay? So it enables you to shift your resources back and forth. So this is where you use your support. This is where you find somebody to help you solve your problems. This is the person who's your boss, who's responsible for cost, schedule, and performance. Okay. We utilized also a secret weapon. Would you like to know what the secret weapon was?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the secret weapon. At least once a week, every week, at least once, I would go onto the job site, and I would walk the job site and start on the roof, 5th floor, 4th floor, 3rd floor, 2nd floor, 1st floor, basement, tunnels under the building, because there were people working in all those locations. And I would try my very best to walk up to every single person working on that project, and I would say, thank you. Thank you very much. You know, everyone's proud of what you do. It's really neat what you've accomplished. Thank you very much. Thank you. You're a hero. You know you're a hero. You know, kids are coming home from school today. They're going to turn on the TV. They're going to see you on TV. They're going to see what you did. They're going to see what you've done for this building to bring it back. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. You know, you represent all the best things about this country. You represent the best things about America. You know, and you're serving as an example for this entire nation to look at, to observe, and to watch, and to see just how strong and powerful we are as a nation, because we hang together and we pull together, and we're one nation, we're united together. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm proud to work with you, okay? And I can't say just how appreciative I am of you being here on this program and working as hard as you do to make us successful. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, I think the world of you guys You know, I've never worked with finer people in my life. You're the most wonderful people I've ever worked with. Thank you so much for being here, and giving everything that you do. Thank you. We're going to stop at that, okay? Because I can't shake everybody's hand. I just want to mention something to you. Do you notice that this room right now is a different room than it was just 10 minutes ago? It's dead quiet in here, okay? It's dead quiet. People relate to what you just saw. And for most people, it's an emotional tug at the heart to see and experience that. And I would just point out to you, we're only pretending, okay? You're not standing in the middle of a building that an airplane went through and the people died in, okay? You're just sitting in an auditorium. The emotional impact of walking up to people, shaking their hand, and thanking them for what they did is amazing. And you don't understand the power that you will have out of that construction site, because you're going to be a leader out there. People are going to look up to you. You're the person that they see. You're the person that they believe in. You're the person who's going to take them, lead them to success. And you come up and you thank them and you shake their hand and you tell them how much you appreciate them. And you tell them how proud of them you are. And I went through that building one day, and a guy came up to me, and I can only say, lumbered up. He was about 6'4", maybe 240, 250. And the guy came up to me and he said, "Sir," he said, "I've worked in construction for 40 years. I worked in construction for 40 years. And this is the first time in 40 years that an owner has ever come onto my job site and walked up to me and shook my hand and thanked me. It's the first time." And the guy burst into tears. You know, I said, "Oh, there."